Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Chase Jarvis Live Show here on CreativeLive. You all know this show. This is where I sit down with the world's top creators, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders, and I do everything I can to unpack their brain with the goal of helping you live your dreams in career, in hobby, and in life. I am extremely excited about today's episode because it's an episode that you all have been asking for. And what I mean by that is a lot of the time we have folks who are from outside the photo industry, or folks who I have come to know through adventures beyond photography. And today, and you all are avid photographers, there's a huge contingent of photographers here paying attention, not everyone. But regardless of your mode of expression or the way that you couch yourself in creativity, today's guest is someone who started off as a fan of the show and has since made a journey not just halfway across the planet, but through desiring to start a career, have started that career, and now has cultivated a ton of success for himself. And this brings me a great pleasure to introduce a man who hails from Ghana, Africa. We have a long history together, and I'm excited to cover that history, but mostly what it's like to be someone who's coming up in the creative industries right now in the areas of photography and documentary film. My guest is the one and only Mr. Paul Ninson. Paul, welcome to the show. I'm so honored that you're here, and we are going to cover some good ground today. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Chase. Thank you so much. It's been a long time coming.
It has. And again, as a documentary photographer and filmmaker, I know that is part of how you identify now. I'm hoping, though, that you can trace a little bit of your journey, maybe even our journey, you paying attention to Brandon Stanton, our mutual friend, who is the creator of Humans of New York, who connected us while you were still in Ghana a couple of years ago. I'm wondering if, as we welcome people, I can see here people tuning in from all over the planet. They are cheering for you, congratulating you on not being on the show, but as for being able to pursue your dreams and for creating success for yourself. So again, we got folks from Auckland, New Zealand, it looks like, here, Ontario. I got 2 LAs in the house, hands raised for Paul. So the world's welcoming you. And
Thank you.
In parallel with those folks tuning in from all over the place, could you give us a little backstory on how you first were acquainted with the show, the journey through us meeting, and then we can get into your journey as a creator?
Thank you, Chase. I'm Paul Ninson from Ghana. So in 2017, I decided to become a photographer. So I sold my camera in I sold my iPhone in 2016 to buy a camera with the hope of becoming a photographer.
So how did you communicate? If you sold your phone, did you not have a phone at all then, or did you have just a small connected non-smartphone device?
Yes. So I had an iPhone, and then I sold the iPhone, which meant my luxury to start a career which I knew barely nothing about. I only heard about it, and so there was this burning desire to become a photographer. So I constantly was looking for information. I constantly looking for photographers on Facebook, everywhere possible. That's how I got to know of CreativeLive, the CreativeLive podcast, and it's just different being on it.
Different now. This is what I mean by folks have been asking for a long time for this full circle. Folks who are in the early chapters of creating success for themselves, as you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if we can maybe even go one level deeper. So you sold your smartphone to buy a DSLR to have a shot at becoming a photographer. And thank you for being I don't know, paying attention to what it is that we do here online. But I also know you were paying attention to another amazing documentary photographer and storyteller, our mutual friend, Brandon Stanton. So you tell your version of the story first about bumping into Brandon, and then I'll tell my story because there's a funny little way that it connects. So share with me how you initially met Brandon, which led to us being on the phone today.
Okay. So back in Ghana, when even I didn't have a camera, I was watching CreativeLive. I couldn't afford it then. So I'll have to, currently right now, the time difference is that I'm in New York. Currently it's 12 p.m. In Ghana, 12 a.m. in Ghana. So I have to stay up. I have to stay up to watch the free version of CreativeLive. So if then I have to save money to buy CreativeLive online or as a gift from someone. So actually, I got to know Brandon through CreativeLive. It was on the show that I got to know who the person behind Humans of New York. So who knew that years down the line, I'll meet him in Ghana, Accra. So it was very, very funny. I met him and people didn't know who he was because
recount the story of how you actually bumped into him. Say you were walking down the street.
Yes, so a friend of mine
just to recap, you'd seen him on the show. He's been a guest here a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
He has a class on CreativeLive, and so you're familiar with that. And then at some point you're in Ghana in the town square, or just give us a little detail. How did you meet Brandon?
So on a good day, I think it was Thursday, a friend of mine called me that he has a program, so I should come and take pictures of. And I actually didn't want to go. Honestly, didn't want to go. But then I was like, okay, it's a friend. Let me help him with some pictures. And it was a study abroad program. So Kwame, so I went with him. And so when we're on a University of Ghana campus, I saw him. And I was like, that is Humans of New York guy. Brandon, and then people like,
was he just walking around? Like what he clearly he was there making some stories for Honey, right?
Yes, he was there making stories. And then I honestly, I think somebody said it on Facebook or somewhere that Humans of New York is going to be in Ghana, but I didn't know when. Actually, honestly, I didn't know when. And I mean, for me, what's the odds of meeting him? So I was like, okay, fine. If he's in town, okay. And so when I met him, I was like, hey, that's you, Humans of New York. And then he's like, he was trying to play it out like that was not him. I'm like, that's you, I know you. And he's like, how do you know me? And I'm like, oh, CreativeLive, I've watched your tutorials on CreativeLive. So that's how I got to know you. It's like, okay. So we talked briefly and people came around to talk to him and then get pictures with him. And then, so for me, I was like, documentary photographer, I'm always documenting people, not taking pictures with people. So I told him, hey, can I get a picture of you? So I asked him to sit and then make a portrait of him. That was it. And then I left. So I think now he said I made a good impression. So
you made a good impression. This is where I want to interject my part, which is it's 4:00 in the morning and I'm I was splitting. I had a home in Seattle and in San Francisco, and I was in my bed in San Francisco, and I looked at my phone with one eye because it's 4 a.m, and I see Brandon's name, and I'm like, "Oh, buddy." And sometimes he calls me early because he's normally in New York, and so I'm like, he forgot that I'm in Seattle or in San Francisco right now, and so I'll call him later. The phone rings again, and so he's calling me twice. I'm like, he really wants to talk to me about something, and I'm like, oh, dude, do you know it's like 4:30 in the morning for me? And he's like, yeah, but you know what? I don't even care because I'm in Ghana right now. And, I was just connected with this amazing photographer named Paul. And Paul saw us originally on the internet together. And there's just something really special about this guy. And I want to find a way for us all to stay connected. So Go back to sleep. I just wanted to tell you we were thinking about you halfway across the world. And so apparently you walked away after photographing him, and he immediately called me, and he's like, literally, I'm standing in the town square in what city was it? Accra?
It was Accra, so it was in the
Okay.
University of Ghana. So
That's
then
right.
Brandon was like, I'm interested. Come, let's sit and talk. And I'm like, okay, if Brandon is calling you to come and sit and talk, that's like, it's great, you know. So we sat, he talked, we talked. And then funny enough, I had my laptop in my bag. So he asked that, can I see some of your works? So I just pulled my laptop out and then showed him some of the work. And it's like, you good. This is good work. I'm like, I mean, it's like, then I was like, okay, fine. If you're saying it's good, I'll accept that. I know. So then he was like, why? So what's your plans? Do you want to be published, or do you want to make money out of it? So I think exactly I told him money will always come, but putting my work out there was more important than the money. And then
Wow.
yes, so that's one of the, I remember exactly telling him that. And then he asked me, how did I become a photographer? And I told him, oh, to CreativeLive, watching CreativeLive every now and then. He's like, oh, do you know Chase Jarvis? I was like, yes, I know Chase Jarvis. I watch his podcast. I know every person who has been on the show. I can tell you all that he stands for. And I told him I became a photographer. I started doing personal projects because of Chase Jarvis, because Chase Jarvis was talking about personal projects. And so I think when I became a photographer, I saved money and then started doing a lot of personal projects. I never had hopes of publishing works. I never knew what the portfolio would do for me, or the personal projects would do for me. But I mean, I was like, okay, somebody from the industry who's successful is talking about personal projects, so I guess maybe probably that's the way forward. But then again, as I kept doing it, I realized that my vision was clear. I knew what I wanted to do, and it explored me through various means, because I did weddings, I did events, I did everything, but my personal project was personal to me, and I really enjoyed it.
I think there's so much wisdom in that process that you just shared. And for anyone watching, remember, we're talking, this is 2017. Paul had zero experience with a camera, sold his phone in order to buy a camera in order to have a shot at taking some pictures. And the first opportunity when you were given to show your portfolio to someone who, could really recognize talent, and, and sent you back with this note like, you have real aptitude.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's so much value in the leap that you had to make in order to start. You had to start doing something instead of nothing, right? Because there was a time when you were thinking about photography and not taking action. And so I want to, call attention to that for anyone who's listening or watching. And then the second part about personal projects, which it I can't praise you enough. And if I don't know if you caught what Paul said there, again, it was, you were photographing weddings, photographing portraits, doing all of the things that you needed to do in order to pay the bills, but with all of your extra money, you use those to sink into personal projects. And what were some of those personal projects? And what's an example of something you spent your own money on, in an attempt to create work that you wanted someone else ultimately to hire you for, rather than weddings or other portraits? What kind of projects were you undertaking with your own money?
So based on the weddings, the events, I was saving money, and so for me, it was more of, what can I do different? What can I do different? I constantly was asking myself, what can I do different? What can I differentiate myself from the pack of photographers in Ghana, in Africa, So constantly, that was what I was looking for. So what I did was, I saved money, bought a ticket, one ticket to East Africa, and I started researching. So about 6 months, 5 months, I started researching on stories which are unique, which the media is not reporting on, which the narrative of Africa is different. So one of the first projects I did was a village with no men in Kenya. It was a group of women who they've been abused. They've been traditionally, culturally, they've not been supported enough by their husbands because of diaries, and so they formed their own village where men are not allowed. So people constantly ask me why were men not allowed in that village. Is because of that, because the dairy was expensive, so men saw them as properties. So they formed their own village and a supporting village, a community. So even today, if you look at other things, people will say feminism is in the Western side, or a community for women, or championing women were on the other side. But this is a typical story which shows that a lot of people in that side of the world were doing what were not seen and was not in the media today.
Yeah, I love your passion chasing stories that you were aware were not being told elsewhere. And whether you're a documentary photographer like Paul chasing that story, or this applies to anyone, right? Like, what is a way that you can stand out and do something that others are not? And this is not a requirement, but this is a part of the creative process, because so many of us want to, stand out and differentiate ourselves, but we're unwilling to take a risk. And I've said this so many times, you can't stand out and fit in at the same time. And so your willingness to spend your own money to go to East Africa to photograph this village, this community of women only, a feminist community in Africa. Would you say that was one of the things that, when you completed that project, or during the process of creating that, how did it make you feel? Did you learn something along the way? What did you learn about personal work in general?
One, I think the risks part, that's what you're talking about. People are not willing to take risks. People love to be in their comfort zone, and the comfort zone will never get you the results. Look at me. I've never been to East Africa at that point. I don't know Kiswahili. I don't know the people over there. I don't know anybody in that section of Kenya. I knew somebody in the city, Nairobi. So why would I do that at the expense of going around Ghana, taking pictures everybody's taken? Was comfortable doing that in Ghana, but then I learned a lot. How to even find a fixer, how to find the best place to get the food, how to even communicate with the people. And this is me, who has never done a project before, a documentary project before. So now today, if you look back, I look back and now people are talking about these things. I've done that. In my first year, I was going to places nobody wanted to go. I was that National Geographic photographer with no support, showing up at a village. Think about it, a village with no men. How do I get in? How do I talk my way through? How do I express myself? Even they don't speak English and I don't speak their language. So how do you navigate through that? How do you find the best hotel around? So how do you even find somebody who can translate? And even how do you even tell the story? For me, it was like, how do I tell the story? It's years of months of preparation, months of research, visual research, months of planning, and anything can go wrong. And that's the part people, every time I tell this story, it's like, I did not know who to publish this story, pitch the story to. I did not know how to pitch a story. I did not know that somebody would be even interested. But the point was that I wanted to do it. That's all I cared. Whether people were interested or not, I wanted to see a vision. I wanted to learn through this process that will help my career. And people in the beginning discouraged me. A lot of people, I lost friends. I lost good friends in the process because people were like, documentary photography, how can you survive with documentary photography? Wedding is great, do wedding. But the satisfaction, the fulfillment was what is important to me. And I saw that. I knew photographers who have come through CreativeLive, and I saw their work, and I was like, I want to be better than this person. I want to get here. I want to be that National Geographic photographer. I want to get there. So for me, that drive, because one day I remember in one village, I was nearly beaten up because the people didn't want me to tell their stories of the women and other people there. How do I talk through that? And these are some of the risks in the beginning I took which people, so now people saw my work and I was different from every Ghanaian photographer.
Wow.
And that is how I think people started recognizing my work.
Yeah, that I think there's so much beauty in it. Was actually your willingness to go and do the thing, and you said it very clearly, right? With you didn't have a plan, you didn't know where to pitch a story, you didn't know the end use, and so many times I think everybody wants the entire map like laid out clear for them.
Yeah.
But what I loved about your story, the first time I heard it initially from Brandon, and then you and I got on the phone not long after that, and I'll never forget that call. It was just so heartfelt and earnest. But that process of pursuing what was passionate for you ultimately was the thing that helped you stand out from every other photographer in Ghana. Now, this is where the story takes an interesting twist, because what you'll come to know about Paul and his work is that he was not just satisfied with telling stories of East Africa to Ghana. You had set your ambitions a little bit higher. So I'm wondering, we've talked a little bit about how you got your first camera and some of your first personal work that helped get you recognized as a documentary photographer in Ghana, telling stories that were, other people were afraid to tell. But tell us about sort of your next ambition and what unfolded next in your journey.
So I am very determined and hardworking person. I'll be honest. I started my first company at the age of 20, grew the company up to, at the age of 20, I was still in school, first year in school. And I grew the company up whilst I was a student. I was printing, designing in my dormitory. So I knew that if I want to do something, I want to do it. No matter how people discourage me, I knew. And every time I tell people that, even now being in New York, I tell people that I know where I come from, I know who I am, and I know where I'm going. So if I know my past, my present, and my future, why would your opinion matter to me? Why will your criticism or whatever is important to me? Because I know where I'm coming from. And this fuels me, keeps me going every now and then. So for me, I had a checklist. On my wall, I had New York, International Center of Photography, Eddie Adams, National Geographic, and I wasn't interested in awards. In the beginning, I promised myself that I would not apply for any awards for 3 years. Why? Because I wanted to shoot from my heart. Wasn't interested in recognition. I wasn't interested in fame. I wasn't interested in any kind of glory which would take me away and would give me a sense of different of why I go and shoot pictures. I go take pictures. Why I wake up in the morning, take my camera out and take pictures. It wasn't just about the money. It wasn't just about the awards. I wasn't interested in that. I was really interested in being a visual storyteller. So I had my checklist and I knew how. So funny enough, 3 months after I bought my camera, I got into ICP. The first project, 3 months, the first project, 2017. So when I was in Kenya documenting the village with no men, I got an email from the head of the program that I got into ICP. And I was like, wow.
And for those who don't know, ICP is the International Center for Photography in New York, which is a very prestigious film or photography academy. And my understanding was that you had submitted and shared some work with them shortly after buying your camera, and that it was while you were doing this job and just returned that you'd heard that work, also other personal work, had caught the attention of ICP. And so, sorry, pick up your story. Just I wanted to give a little clarity for anyone who didn't know that this prestigious location in New York had reached out to you.
Yeah, so they gave me partial scholarship, and I was like, no way I can afford the rest of the tuition. So as my excitement was short-lived, it was like, okay, you've given me this part of the tuition reduction, but I cannot afford. I just started photography, and this is what. But then I was so determined to, because it was different from me learning on YouTube, learning from CreativeLive of telling stories, but I wanted to be part of a community. I wanted to be in a different environment to see or to know how, because my background is like how I became how I was interested in storytelling was my grandparents were traditional rulers, so they were passing on oral histories from generation to generation. So they felt I need to hear about my tradition, about the Asante tribe war with the British colony and all that, So growing up, that was the burning desire. So I didn't recognize it. So I was looking for, how do I tell stories from A to Z? How do I do that? So even the pictures, how do I sync them together? How pitch, so I knew I met a photographer in Ghana because mostly I was assistant for photographers, fixing them in Ghana. So I met one who was a graduate of ICP. So then I was like, okay, I want to be in ICP. So that was the first time I heard of ICP. Then now, 3 years down the line, I just graduated last month from ICP.
So I want to fill in a little bit of color. And so again, ICP is not cheap. Right? So despite having, this receiving a note from them and getting an offer to attend on partial scholarship, how were you able to get from Ghana to where you are now, which is sitting in your apartment in New York?
So when I met Brandon, I told him the same thing. He asked me, what do I want to do? So I gave him all, because that's the point. I knew what I wanted to do. And that's what you have to know, so that if you need somebody to help you, or you want somebody to help you, you have to be prepared. When I met Brandon, I had a body of work. Whether I knew everything about it or not, it didn't matter. I had a work. That's all it mattered, because people want to be perfect. People want to be, I want to get all the work, the best camera. I want to get the best picture with all the angles. No. So for me, it was like, this is what I had. And he saw something in me, and he asked me, what do I want to do? And I told him straight up, I got admission in 2017 to ICP in New York, but I couldn't afford the rest of the tuition. So he's like, okay, interesting. So he's like, okay, what if you get the scholarship back? Would you go? And I said, yes, I will go. So he's like, okay, can you send an email to the head of the program and copy me? I said, okay. I mean, you said so I'll do that. I mean, in my mind, I was like, what's he trying to do? Is he going to tell them to give me a full scholarship or what? So I did that, and he sent them an email saying, hey, I met Paul in Ghana. He's an incredible photographer. Do you mind? Can you give him the scholarship back? And what does that mean? So they said, if I apply again, they will be willing to do that. So ICP was grateful enough to give me a scholarship. And then Brandon decided to pay for the rest of the tuition. And I was marveled, because why would you do that? You just met somebody in Ghana, and and then he's like, I believe in you. I believe in your talent. I believe in what I see in you. So I'm willing to pay the rest of the tuition and for you to be in New York and support you in any way possible. And for me, I wouldn't have been here without Brandon. Honestly, it wouldn't have been possible, because who does that? And it didn't end there, because for me, it was like, okay, you connected me to Chase Jarvis, you helped me pay the tuition, so okay. But then during the visa process, here's Brandon helping me get a visa, because it's very difficult. If people don't know, it's very difficult to get visa to United States of America. It's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. So
yeah, it's hard to overstate how difficult it is.
Yes, people don't know. It's very difficult. You have to apply, wait for visa interview in 50 days, you're waiting for visa interview, then you have to just go join a queue, and then you get the visa. Even with that, you're not guaranteed. Even if you have all the scholarship, the support, you're not guaranteed of a visa to United States of America. So hey, so that you guys know. So
Very,
Brandon,
very difficult.
yeah, yeah. So Brandon
Well,
helped me with all the documentations and everything through the process. He went all beyond everything. I mean, he. I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful to Brandon and Chase Jarvis.
of course. No, no, like that's just for anyone who's if it wasn't already obvious what an amazing human the creator Brandon Sanson behind Humans of New York is. That story underscores it, and there's so many stories like that I know about Brandon that a lot of others don't. And he's just such a kind, amazing. Of course, he's an insane talent, but just so kind-hearted that made all of this, the financial part, possible. And it's important to know that had you not done the work, right, if you didn't, as you said already, if you didn't have a portfolio to show him on that day, even if it wasn't perfect, that you had, as you said, which I think is beautiful. This is the pull quote of all pull quotes. Like, I knew my past, I know what I'm doing now, my present, and I knew my future. I knew what it is that I wanted to do, and that you didn't let any haters or anyone talk you out of that. I think that is just so. It gives me chills to hear the clarity. And I think for so many people who find themselves in a position to, overcome huge obstacles. I mean, to have, limited financial support, to be halfway around the world and not have a camera, and then, arguably 3 months later be accepted to ICP, and then a year after that to actually be attending, is just a remarkable tribute to you, Paul, for that clarity. And I think that is, the saying goes, it's hard to get where you want to be if you don't know where you want to go. and it's hard to it's a huge testament to you. So as you shared with us, you've just graduated from ICP, and I want to talk a little bit about what it's been like for you to be in New York. Obviously, that's a huge and vastly creative city. It's one of my favorite cities on the planet. What were some of your impressions when you got here, and how did you get to work?
So then again, Brandon. Then again, I remember when I got to New York, Brandon was in Japan, and when he came, he was texting me on Instagram. I didn't have a phone then, so a phone number yet. So he was texting me on Instagram saying, "Hey, do you need anything? And this is such an amazing person." I'm like, "Oh, I'm here already." So, and it's like, "Do you need anything? What do you need?" Trying to support me as much as possible. Then I remember when he came, he's like, "School is great. The school you're attending is good, but then the street is also good. So you have the street, which is me, and you have the school. And if you tag along with me, you can learn more. If you be in the school, you can learn more." And so Brandon took me under his wing. Well, a couple of times we went out to do stories. I tag along, watch him behind the scenes. He's such an incredible, hardworking person, and that inspired me a lot because he posts on Instagram, but you don't know what goes behind the scenes. So waking up every day to go take pictures is not easy. I won't, as much as I'm determined, I won't. If I reach a certain stage, maybe I'll be trying to slow down and say, "Hey, I've gotten there yet now, so let me relax a little bit." Brandon is different. He goes out every day, rain or shine, and he has been doing that for years. How on earth wouldn't I be inspired? So I was thinking, I'm like, this is the guy who sold like New York best-selling author 2 times, has huge followers, successful, and still go
Yeah,
out
like the
every
most
day.
successful social media channel of any photographer on the planet. He had 40
Mm-hmm.
million followers or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm
And
like,
he's still the hardest working person that
yes.
both of us know.
So I'm like, if this guy is going out every day to take pictures, who am I to sleep? Oh man, I was like, nope,
Who
I'm
am I to
here.
sleep in, right?
So I'm like, I'm here to work, and he's such a hardworking and so inspiring. So that is one of the major things which helped me. I think Brandon has helped me and still helped me. We talked 3 days ago, figuring out things. Yesterday we talked, and constantly in. So when I came, he took me for a walk. We went to eat, and he asked me, "What do I want to do?" So he was trying to get me to know more about New York and what it is. So being in New York is different. I lost a couple of times because the numbers and then the street numbers were different. So I got lost a couple of times, and yeah, I found my way through school every now and then, and also there's underneath different culture here.
Yeah.
People are so much into themselves. I come from a culture where we are community, and I mean that is what the culture is. And I come from where people are naive in certain things, and you have to educate people that in certain areas of life, with all that is going on about racism. For me, I'm from Africa. Everyone is black. We are all the same. We all treat each other the same, no matter the tribe you come from. So I've read about racism, but I didn't know what racism was. I've never experienced it. So now I'm cautious of my skin color. Now I'm like,
And
oh, so this is what racism is. So these things, and for me, that's the same thing. So when I got to school, I knew what I wanted. I know where I'm coming from, I know who I am, and I know where I'm going. So your stupid comments, your racism is not going to stop me because I come from a place where there's no ICP. So if I'm lucky to be here, I'm not going to let your sentiment about my skin color, about where I come from, my accent, distract me. So I go to school, finish school, go home, go learn, and I took 32 courses. I think maybe probably I'm the one who took a lot of courses in the school because I mean it's part of the school, and it's easy for me. I took photo editing, digital asset management, filmmaking. So now I'm into filmmaking as well because for me it was what can I do next? My checklist, I'm almost done. So what can I do next? What is the next thing? What is the next biggest thing? So for me, how do I tell stories different? How do I tell stories in a good way, in a raw way as an African, not to influence me? It's good. I gave myself assignments every day. New York is busy, so every week, every day, I had an assignment for myself. I go out to shoot protest. I go out to shoot parade. I go out to shoot veterans parade. I go out to shoot everything on the streets. In New York, every time there's something new, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, everyone's campaign, I was there. I'll show up. So then I was discovering myself. What do I want to do next? Every lecture knew me because I'll go and ask you questions and I'll ask you questions. So I think they gave me a nickname called Quick Questions because I'll ask you. So that has been my experience in New York. It's different. For me,
yeah.
it's very different. I'm still learning. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything about black, white. I hate to talk about that. I don't believe human beings should be divided based on their skin color. So I hardly try to talk about it. But then it's what it is. And I've experienced so much racism, which is not funny. I mean,
Yeah.
it's such silly to see my skin color, and it's terrible. Sometimes it makes you really feel very sad. Like I don't. It's just. One day I was on my way to school. A lady gave me $1 to go buy food on the subway. I'm like, why are you giving me $1 to go buy food? I didn't tell you I'm hungry. Why are you doing that? And underneath it, I understood. Oh, she thought I'm poor. Oh, okay. I don't care. I'll go ahead and do why I came here, and one day I'll go back home.
Well, again, how you speak about it so frankly, honestly, is just I appreciate the directness and the honesty, and it also breaks my heart. And simultaneously inspires the hell out of me to hear how driven you are. And I think, you heaped a lot of praise onto Brandon. He's, to both of us, he's a dear friend and one of our favorite people on the planet. It's how we know one another. And yet, I think you disproportionately, just be careful, because you are the reason that you're here. And the people who are, I'm seeing the comments again chiming in from all over the world, just giving you mad respect for the journey that you've been on, and also for sharing your story and telling it in a really heartfelt and honest way. I think that's part of what people who've been watching this show for a long time, they want to hear that. And so thanks for giving us the unfiltered truth behind your journey. And I think there's a difference between sort of hustle and grind and all of those, those attributes, or the verbs that we throw at this mentality of chasing what you want. But I just want to circle back on the thing that you've said now a number of times, which is just clarity, clarity of what it is. You said your checklist, you have goals that you look at every day, and you're checking them off one by one. And it's in that clarity that you're able to be driven and to be able to play through the struggle and the hardship. As a gut check here, are there times when that's harder than others? And do you ever get frustrated or to the point of wanting to give up or quit, and how do you manage that? In a sense, this is a question about your mindset.
Yeah, sure. Yes, behind every scene, there's moments where you get sad. There's moments where you feel, because look, I had my plan laid out. After school, find an internship, newsroom internship, find a good place to be. And COVID-19 happened. Well, I cried or wake up and keep on complaining? No. Yeah, sometimes I feel depressed about it. That why this time when I'm in US? Why this time? But what can I do? I have to be positive to go ahead. Sometimes I read a lot. I read 60 books a year. I divide my time and my energy very carefully so that I can read these books. So when I'm sad, I miss home right now. I try to read. I try to find comfort in the people around me and to gear towards ahead, because right now I just got my work permit to stay in US and I have to survive. So I won't lie about it. I'm looking for a job, to survive, because you cannot. For me, Brandon tell me all the time that I want to be an artist. To be an artist, you have to figure a way that you don't need to be stressed about how to pay the bills. So if I can find a day job, a part-time job, so that I can support my living and continue to create, great. That would be the future. And every time I tell people, me being here, I'm here for the number of young photographers in Ghana. I just found out that I might be one of the first photographers, a native Ghanaian, to come to school in US. What does that mean? It means a lot of people are looking up to me. Every post I post, every statement I make is inspiring someone. So this keeps me going, because right now I'm setting up a first photography library in Ghana. I'm trying to find a foundation, trying to find a means to support people, because I don't want the chain to end with me. I hate the idea of star. I hate the idea of elite. I want a community, young photographers from Ghana, be able to tell our own story or stories across Africa. So for me, that is my goal. That is what keeps me going. That keeps me awake, and how to figure that out. Because 10,000 US dollars, 20,000 US dollars in Ghana is a lot of money. So if I can make that money and more of that, I can help transform a young person who is confused. I was 3 years ago to become a photographer. So that's how I deal with it.
No, that's so inspiring. And I think we all run the risk from time to time, as is natural, of getting down on our own circumstances regardless. of again, race, orientation, gender. There's all sorts of stuff, and it's fair to acknowledge that there's so much privilege in the world, and yet at the end of, if you distill all that, what we really have is this muscle between our ears, our problem solving, how we manage the challenges that we're all going through. And it strikes me that your mindset is part of what differentiates you from so many others. I remember when we first we spoke on the phone a couple of times, and I remember those just heartfelt, very emotional conversations. This is when you were still in Africa.
Yep.
And then meeting in person, it was immediately clear to me how important your mindset was, and all this stuff for, again, those folks who are tuning in from all over the world right now to, get a little bit more info on you and your story. It's important for me to make the point that this mindset aspect that you have, Paul, is such a critical element to your success and to this energy that you put off as a great human. So I'm also interested in exploring how you come up with assignments for yourself, because you made that point earlier, and there are some people asking about it in the comments, about like they don't even know where to start. And you mentioned having regular self-assigned work in New York. It's always busy, it's always crazy. And so how do you decide what you want to shoot and what you don't want to shoot, and how do you hold yourself accountable?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. I think the point is, self-assignment is very easy. People think complicate things, make it so complicated. I just want to tell a story of someone. I'm just an artist. So whether it's dark or it's raining, or whether it's you just have to find a story to tell. So right now, for example, COVID hit and everybody is at home. I mean, I was very careful. So what I did was I wanted to tell a story, but New York Times, I watch New York Times, I watch National Geographic. Everybody's telling the story differently. In one way, photographers are going outside, going to take pictures of people clapping. So what I did was I got a backdrop, a flash, an umbrella I bought from B&H. Then I hung them up, pegged them up in front of every hospital. And I'm like, hey, I'm Paul, a student of blah, blah, blah. Do you want me to take a portrait of you? I'm doing a story called What Was Your Experience? What Did You See? Frontline workers. And people started coming in one after the other. Guess what? At the end of the day, I got 162 people. But the other downside is that I got rejected more than 300 times.
300 rejections.
Yes. And look, the same thing happened. I'm in front of the hospital and I send a text message to Brandon and say, hey, I look very stupid. I'm out here emotionally tired. People are just rejecting me for no reason. I'm just making pictures of people. You see, that's the other downside of it. And then I'm like, oh, and Brandon is like, you have to go out there again and again and again for you to be emotionally beaten down, that you don't feel it again. So every time there's something, then I moved on quickly to protest. And protest, people were taking pictures of Black Lives Matter everywhere. So, okay, fine. Everybody's doing that. How will I be different? So I started narrowing it down to frontline workers protesting for Black Lives Matter. That was my angle. That was my story. And nobody did that. Everybody was shooting and spraying. Every protest you show up, I will have to reserve my energy, my time, and my resources and find that story nobody's paying attention to. That small story. So when hospital workers, frontline workers were protesting, I show up because that's my interest. That is what I want. I mean, I cannot cover the whole of New York, all the 5 boroughs, to go every protest, every weekend, every day. No, it's not like I'm not interested in that. It's not like I don't want to document history. But then even that, I'm scared of what will happen. So then let me focus on the small story and then start doing that. So finding stories is one after the other. It's little by little. Look for the stories behind your back door. How even your parents are reacting to COVID.
That's so true. There are stories. The way I like to think about it is if there's 50 pictures within 50 feet of where you're standing right now, there's equally 50
Yeah.
stories, and you're finding the story in the sea of humanity. If you're again a documentary photographer, like what piques your curiosity. I want to go back to the rejection in case people weren't paying attention. So, um, talk to me about the various reasons that you got rejected, what it felt like, and how you managed that.
So it felt bad. I felt really bad. I was like, sometimes people was like, I'm trying to do a good story. You have a genuine interest, a genuine motive, but then maybe the person is not interested to his pictures to be taken. It's fine. Deal with that. Move on. The next day, show up again. Not everybody want their pictures to be taken. Not everybody want to talk. So yes, I felt really bad. And then the train was not running at some point, so I had to pay for Uber. Think about it. I paid $50 from Brooklyn to come to Midtown, hang my backdrop on scaffolds in front of the hospital. I didn't have a stand. Then people reject you. Think about it. And I was the only person. And it's by the street, only person. Think about it. It's like, just imagine it. Only person on the street. And I'm in front of the emergency hospital and seeing bodies coming in and out and trying to make pictures out of that. And everybody might be different. So yeah, the rejection was bad. But it wasn't personal. I didn't want to take it personal. I knew why I was there, and then I knew what I wanted. So sometimes it's terrible. Like it's bad. I'm human. But then if you know where you're going, if you know what you want, keep going. I never dreamed that 3 years, 4 years down the line, I'll be on Chase Jarvis podcast. I never dreamed I'll be in New York today. I never dreamed I will be where I am today. And I started photography 3 years ago, just 3 years ago. So remember all the bad pictures I took in my first year to get to where I am today. So finding personal projects is up to you. It's very easy. Just find one after the other. And I keep telling people, my friends and everybody, like, if you need any help, if you just send me a message. I will try to look through your work. I'll try to help you based on my knowledge from my ICP and true experience as well.
Now might be a good time to share a little bit more about how people can follow you and what to tune into as they're following you, Paul. Where would you like to steer people, and what coordinates on the internet? Where do you want to send people?
My website is www.paulninson.com, and my Instagram is pninson, and it's the same thing on Facebook, Paul Ninson, and it's very easy. And sometimes people's like, oh, they are scared to send me a message. But funny enough, I reply every single message from when I had 2,000 followers to now that I have almost combined of 82,000 followers. I will always reply people because I know where I started, and I knew the help some people like Chase Jarvis, Brandon, and other people from my school have helped me to today. So I will never look down anybody. I'll never look back to say I won't respond. So just send me a message as soon as I have time. I'm available. I will respond to you and I'll help you. I'll jump on a Zoom call with you during my available time to help you in any way.
And let's also be real. Like, what are some things that you're looking for? Are you looking for more subjects for your photo projects? You mentioned earlier that you're looking for some employment in order to make your way amidst the COVID downturn, and obviously you're incredibly skilled at so many things. What is there anything else that you're looking for? You're looking for more subjects, or how could this community come together to help you?
If you can send a letter to the head of National Geographic or New York Times to tell them to hire me, I'll be grateful. But then, Yes, so for me, it's always looking for how to help people tell their stories. Whether it's organization, nonprofit, I have years and experience with nonprofits. I've traveled across almost 12 countries to 17 countries in Africa to help people tell their stories. So I think some of the organizations need help in storytelling. And that is where I fall into helping organizations, helping people tell their stories, whether it's a personal story, whether it's organizations, newsroom, whatsoever. I mean, I'm looking to gain experience from America. And yes, so that is what currently I'm looking forward to if I get to start off my America journey before I go back home.
Well, thank you for sharing all that stuff. And I know that, again, I'm seeing the comments come in, and there's just a lot of hearts and emotion pouring out for you from so many different places on the planet and across the US. Um, I'm curious, as a sort of the final topic that I'm hoping to explore with you today, Paul. What do you see your future as? Just, I want to recap again for anyone joining. I'm with Paul Ninson, who's one of the brightest young photographers coming out of ICP, the International Center for Photography. Just 3 years ago, was living without a camera in Ghana and has transformed his life in pursuit of his dream to tell stories with a camera. And what, you know, if there was a couple different things I'm hoping to explore, and I was going to try and combine them into one, but maybe I'll divide and conquer here. So, what's next for you? I know you have a work visa, and aside from all wanting to get work, but this is a bit of a leading question, but you talked at one point about earlier in this conversation about going home, and you've talked about telling stories. So, part of what we all have come to love, or what I've known about you for a long time, and what the people who are on the broadcast are watching, listening right now, have come to love about you over the course of the last hour is your clarity. And so I'm hoping you can share a little bit more about where, what you hope to do with these skills and what you've learned here in the U.S. What's next for you, man?
So I think most people, and I think I learned this from you and some few other people. It's like people don't want to talk about like being clear, like what do you want? Like be honest to yourself and be honest to where you want to go. People don't want to talk about money. People don't want to talk. I need money. If I don't have money, so yes, I stole this quote from you. It's like broke. I package it very nicely. A broke photographer can never tell a story.
It's true.
If you're broke, you cannot tell a story. So first, I think one of the things I'm looking to stay here to do is get experience, make enough money, make enough community, then go back home. Because I think, go ahead.
No, sorry, I interrupted you. There was a small delay there. But why do you want to go back home? And what do you hope to do when you get there?
I'm from Africa. Nobody put me on a slave ship to be here. I came by myself. So I will go back home someday. Why? Because I believe I'm more useful in Africa than useful in the US. I believe that there are a lot of people like me. I believe so. In Ghana, which I want to help, in Africa, which I want to help. So I want to go back home to start a photography school and a photography community. My first step is to start a photo library. I'm going to reach out to people, donate any book. It's enough donating money to Africa, donate any book or photography book. Then I could be able to inspire people because it's hard. I'm going to take the whole CreativeLive to Africa. We talked about this. I'm going to bring it the whole CreativeLive to Africa because there are people who need to watch, need to listen to this. They need that. So I think I'm going to do that to help. And sometimes in life, people have to sacrifice. I don't see career. I see impact. My success is not career. My success is how did I impact people's life. CreativeLive has impacted a lot of people's life. And today, I think when you sleep, you can know that even if it didn't transform everybody's life, it didn't transform Paul Ninson's life. So what about that in Africa? So that is what I'm trying to do. I'm going to badge you. I'm going to talk to you more about it. I'm going to constantly worry you to bring your contribution and your help to Africa. And I'm going to take you to Africa someday, you, Brandon, and all the CreativeLive community, to go see what is there and how best we can. And I see a lot of opportunities in Africa. For me, I don't like to complain. I hate complaining. I'm a problem solver. I want to solve problems. I want to help people. So that is my clarity and what I want to do.
Well, I've already committed my time and energy to your mission, my friend.
Yeah.
And of course, CreativeLive, whatever we can do through the vehicle of you, Paul Ninson, to reach more people in Africa. We're committed to that, and I'm excited to hear a little bit more. Maybe we'll have something more to share here in the not too distant future with some of the folks who are watching and listening. And so, Africa, keep your eyes out. Here we come. Paul, I want to thank you so much for sharing your story, for being vulnerable and willing to help us see things we maybe didn't see before, and for sharing your story of being a guy with a phone. I can't even say a guy with a camera. You were a guy with a phone 3 years ago. And your story has touched so many, folks come in. I've seen, if not all 50 states, it certainly looked like a representation of all 50 states from around the country, and so many different countries. I have no idea what time it is in Auckland, New Zealand right now, but they're glued to the screen and your story. Want to give a shout out, of course, to our mutual friend Brandon for connecting us a couple of years ago, and thank you for being on the show and sharing this sort of full circle, which is something, again, that was a direct request from this community. And just know that we're here to support. And if you can help Paul out in any way, you know how to get him. He's P Ninson, P like the letter like Paul, and Ninson, P Ninson on Instagram, and his website's paulninson.com. Is that right? paulninson.com?
Yeah, yes.
Incredibly talented, and just thank you so much for being on the show, bud.
Thank you, Chase.
You're an inspiration to so many, and of course to me. Much respect, my man.
Thank you, Chase. Thank you so much. I think it's an honor to be on this show. It's always important to be honest, to be transparent, because people are watching us. People, if you the Lord gives you that responsibility, you have to be transparent. And I keep on telling everybody I meet, this is who I am. This is what I advise you. And if you want to listen to my story, I will always be honest with what it is. So thank you so much for giving me this platform. It's just amazing. I will always find the time to come to Seattle.
You don't have to. I'm in New York enough, and I'll always meet you. I've got fond memories of the last time we were together before the pandemic hit, and I look forward to getting together again as soon as it's safe to be together, bud. So sure. Thanks again. Signing after everyone. Again, Paul's coordinates. I hope you've enjoyed us fulfilling your request of telling some full circle stories of people in our community that have set out to achieve a dream and pursue that dream with vigor, warts and hard parts and joy and all of the things that come into it. So thanks again for being on the show. Everybody, I hope you have a great evening, and please go check out Paul's work and stay tuned for more stories here at creativelive.com/TV and the Chase Jarvis Live podcast here at Creative Live. Signing off. Talk to you again soon.
Bye.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Chase Jarvis, founder and CEO of CreativeLive. You all know that we have more than 2,000 classes and more than 10,000 hours of